Welcome to Raw Talent, a podcast from Shore Capital Partners focused on the real work of developing people and building stronger organizations. In this series, members of our talent development team have candid conversations about what it really takes to grow leaders and strengthen teams. Talent development is not just a program. It's the everyday work of coaching, feedback, stretch opportunities, and accountability that shapes performance over time. Each episode explores the real challenges companies face when developing people and the lessons learned along the way. All right, great.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
All right. Welcome to the second season of Raw Talent. I'm excited to have two of my colleagues here. Before we get them introduced, this second season is titled Build, Buy, or Both. I'm Jackson Sprayberry. I'm the Director of Talent Development here at Shore. And I'm here with Cynthia and Anderson.
You want to start?
I do. I'm Cynthia Hiskes. I am the head of the Human Capital Center of Excellence at Shore Capital Partners.
And I'm Anderson Williams. I lead talent development. I'm the principal of talent development here at Shore Capital.
All right. So we're going to start with one of the bluntest questions that I think leaders grapple with inside of their business. When do you invest in the talent that you have? And when do you decide it's actually just time to move on? And the real issue that we've kind of talked about in preparation for this is that most leaders answer that question too quickly. They answer that question before they have a firm grasp on what that diagnosis is.
For sure.
And maybe jump to conclusions. So the honest answer to that question is based on what your diagnosis is.
Now, so hang on a second.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let's actually start with that. Why is it that this question keeps surfacing for leaders in the first place?
I think it surfaces for them, especially in our environment, because you need to make decisions quickly. Pressure to deliver results are there. And you also, just by the nature of our business, have a number of people on your team who you've been working with for a while. So you've seen them grow and you're looking to what's next, and you're not really sure if they are going to grow along with you or not, or what you may need to do to get them there.
And I think that sense of urgency and so many competing priorities, and often with a new executive team or a first-time CEO, it's hard to keep your eye on all the things. What you sense or what you know is something's not working the way you want it to work.
Right.
And so you tell somebody and then it still doesn't work. And so it becomes this almost emotional spiral that as you get more frustrated, you're probably more likely to fire because of frustration, not because of any real analysis. It's just the pressure of the environment.
Yep. Which then gets back to slow down, pause, and understand why. Like, what's really happening? Diagnose the problem. Is it the individual? Are they not a fit? Is it the environment around them? We don't necessarily know until you pause and start to think about that and ask that question.
And Anderson, you mentioned, you both touched on it, but most recently that high growth kind of environment. That's obviously one potential reason why leaders default to one side or the other. And when I say one side or the other, I just mean like loyalty or development or moving on. And so what are some other reasons why leaders default so quickly to either keep or move on?
I go back to that emotional response to things, right? So in the loyalty conversation, people want to generally be good to other people. And they want to give them a chance, especially if they came up and had worked with them for a while. They know them, they know their family. All of that makes that loyalty weight that much heavier. And that loyalty is important, but when you think about your role as the CEO or as an executive and you're thinking about building this business, you've got to balance that with what the business needs, what is expected of you and your role. And that's tough. But loyalty feels a lot stronger than the alternative, right? Like it's that the thought of letting someone go who means something to you, or even sometimes having a difficult conversation with somebody who means something to you, kind of outweighs the other things because of the emotional weight.
Wholeheartedly agree. And what I have found to be really helpful when you're in any kind of emotionally charged or human dynamic, if you can take the emotion out of it and approach it in a more like methodical, systemic way and asking the question, and this is where you get to the diagnosis. You're like, well, if this has always been fine, well, what changed? Did the person start doing something different? Or or not? And then what do I need them to do different? And did I tell them that they need to do something different? So it helps you when you slow down and start asking those questions, really start to chip away, because it's usually not one thing, right? It starts to chip away at what the potential causes are, and then you address those one by one.
Yes. I mean, and that's something I know we're going to get to, and it's a tease a bit, but
Yes.
A strong performance management system and cadence
Mhm.
should make this decision much easier.
Mhm.
It shouldn't feel like it's coming out of the blue. Let's actually dig in a bit though on this high growth environment and the way that kind of changes the way we approach this. One thing that Shore often talks about is your business can't grow faster than your people do.
Sure.
Or if your business grows faster than your people, the business breaks.
Yeah.
How does that play out in the decisions and the way that leaders approach their talent?
I think there's a couple of things when you talk about what does someone need to do different, or what does the business need now from a skill standpoint? I think that's the question: is how quickly do you need someone to be able to do something different, and can they get there that fast? So when do I find someone else, or do I try to develop the person I have? I think a lot of the times it depends upon how much time you have, and how quickly can they change or perform. And two things to think about there. One, is it a skills gap that they have that they need to close? How quickly can you get them the skills? And then the other question is, or is it a behavioral gap, which are usually a little bit more difficult to change for people. So I think that plays into the environment also, is how quickly can you actually make it happen based upon what the environment needs.
Yeah, I think the other thing, and I know we'll dig into this a little bit later in another episode, is that in the rapid growth environment, if a business is really doing well, your job description is out of date by the time the ink dries, right?
Sure.
And so you have this mix of talent on your team, some of whom embrace and run into the void, that are your more entrepreneurial. They're naturally wired that way for whatever reason. They're great early stage, what Shore calls athletes. And so for those people, you don't often have to rewrite the job description. They kind of rewrite it for you, and then you write it based on their performance, just as these things. And in other cases, you've got somebody who's a good, steady performer, but then when you start to evaluate their position, or what their position needs now at 3, 4, 5x what that title was before, you've got to do the work to redefine the new standard. It goes back to your conversation. I know we'll dive more into performance management, but there's the performance of the individual in a rapidly changing environment, and then there's the evolution of the environment to set the expectation for the individual.
One other piece I think that plays into this is the individual is maybe performing, maybe not performing. So you'll have that scenario. When you said you have the athlete that's driving and kind of creating the job description as they are moving down the road, which that's fantastic. You usually just kind of stay out of the way of those people, honestly, right? And then you have people who are maybe not performing, but behavior is just bad. And that's easy to identify. So those two ends of the spectrum are kind of easy to manage. You know what to do. What's hard is the ones that are in the middle, because you're like, I don't know. Are they going to get there? Are they not going to get there? What do I need to do different? And I think that is something that also is amplified in our environment when things are moving quickly, because those decisions don't come just once a year. They come like every quarter.
Yeah.
With every add-on.
Exactly. Absolutely. And again, you're like, so let's systemically solve this.
Yeah. Yeah. The other wrinkle, just to since this is the first episode, I'll just keep adding wrinkles, and hopefully we'll iron those out as we go on. But the other part about that, Jackson, and I think this is true in any environment, is perhaps more challenging in a hyper-growth environment. But let's say you've got a really good biz dev person, a really good salesperson, and they have, with your company, your small company, been the chief and the only, and they've largely operated independently, and they've built your business because they're really good at doing that. And now you've grown and you have a team, and they really suck at being a team member. So now in a rapid growth environment, you have the tension of the person who on one side has driven and can still drive a form of growth,
Mhm.
but on the other side is undermining what you're actually trying to build. So which do you value and when? How can you rationalize, letting go or top grading your top salesperson because of the impact they're having in not being able to build a scalable sales team? That's just a difficult tension. When your performance, your financial performance is under a microscope.
One thing that comes to mind is that founder dynamic, and I think that you touched on it a bit. It's a different slant, though. Another phrase that we often use is "what got you here won't get you there."
Yeah.
And so it's this weird kind of, as you all both talked about, this tension of, you know, they've done really well for the company as it was, but
hmm
strategic leaders are looking 1 year out, 2 years out, 3 years out, and having to make these really tough calls initially.
Yeah.
Do we keep this person or not? And it's
Yeah.
that kind of messy middle.
Absolutely messy middle. And I really think this is where the diagnosing conversations can be super, super helpful, because what got you here, let's say in most cases, CEOs are wearing multiple hats,
Mhm.
right? And now to get to there, there's probably some focus that is required, or maybe there's one place or a couple places where they're more uniquely qualified to contribute. Sometimes I think it really comes down to role clarity.
Mm.
So what is it that we need you to do, or the business needs you to do in order to carry us forward? And it's not a matter of you got us here, but you're not going to get us there. But what gets us there is a little different version of you.
Let's actually use that as a transition then to touch on performance management.
Okay.
Because you brought it up, and I think there's like this fine line between bringing new people on and
Mhm.
thinking about that, and then with those folks in the middle that you need maybe some time to figure out,
Mhm.
how does the performance management system or conversation shape the conversation a leader has when they have to
Mhm.
make that decision to move on or not? And what does that look like leading up to it?
I just think that the challenge goes back to something Cynthia's already said. It's clarity. And it's hard to keep clarity in such rapid change.
Mhm.
But if you get swept up by the current and don't keep building that clarity, then you're creating more noise and more
Mhm.
chaos and more difficult performance kinds of conversations. In this environment, your roles may be slightly out of date, but they shouldn't be a lot out of date. Or else it's going to be really hard to have these conversations. Even if it's a founder or an executive from a company that has joined a larger Shore platform, clarifying how that founder who's done all the things,
Mhm.
built a great business, is now clear in how they're going to contribute to the building of the platform where they don't have to do all of those
Mhm.
things,
Mhm.
is an important conversation. And if that simple conversation, that simple clarifying conversation is overlooked, then you create grind and tension between, what do you want me to do?
Absolutely.
This has always
Yep.
been my thing. What do you want me to do
Yep.
now? And so I just come back to that performance management to me. And I know we'll dig into it even more. It starts with clarity.
Exactly. When you sit down with someone, you're like, well, did you do what you were supposed to do? What was I supposed to do?
Exactly.
I thought it was this, so I kind of thought I'm great. I didn't know it was that, or it changed halfway along. And I think that is something I hadn't thought of this before, but is really important when we think about, I don't know, the competencies of folks or mindset competencies of folks that we're hiring in and bringing into the environment. Is your job is also about changing. It's about getting your thing done that you're accountable for right now. But if you're trying to get it so it isn't going to be different next month or the month after that, you're not going to be happy, because that's just part of the environment. So I think there's a little bit of that too, when we not only share expectations, but clarity around this is going to continue to change and evolve. And if that's not comfortable for you, it really may not be a good fit.
All right, with that in mind, I just want to explicitly name, I think we've hit on it, and I may have missed it. One of you may have said it explicitly already, but typically a people problem starts as a leader or a system problem upstream somewhere.
Yes.
And so it's our responsibility as leaders to make sure that we're diagnosing that well.
Mhm.
And so the headline I'm taking away from this is that this decision on keeping or moving is never just a gut call.
Never.
It's never just a gut call. It really depends on How critical is the role? How urgent is this? What is their coachability? What does the business need both now and do we have the time? Is this triangulation of can I coach by when? And if not, then what? The earlier that performance management system and conversation happens, the easier it is for these conversations to take place and for a leader to move with more conviction in the way that they move instead of some sort of like last minute, almost disciplinary conversation.
Yeah.
And so when you're moving into a fast moving business, we often don't want to slow down to do like a root cause analysis for where our people are. But that's what we have to do. And that's what we're going to talk about episode 2.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great.
So we're going to slow this down in the next episode. And before you decide that the person's the problem, what else should we be looking at?
Cool.
Sounds great. I'll be ready.
If you enjoyed this episode, check out other Raw Talent episodes at www.shorecp.university/podcasts or anywhere you get your podcasts. Here you will find our Bigger, Stronger, Faster, Microcap Moments, and Everyday Heroes series, each highlighting the people and stories that make investing in the lower middle market unique. This podcast was narrated by Jackson Sprayberry, created and produced by Austin Johnson, editing by Podhouse Productions. This podcast is the property of Shore Capital Partners, LLC. None of the content herein is investment advice, an offer of investment advisory services, nor a recommendation or offer relating to any security. See the Terms of Use page on the Shore Capital website for other important information.